Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Connecting Dots podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Usama, and I'm very delighted to be having Mr. Naeem Ghauri with us today. He's the chairman at NetSol Technologies, and he's a CEO and founder at Autos Mobility, which is intended to reimagine the mobility, especially cars. So, with that, let's get started. Sir, thank you very much for being here with us. And how's your day going so far?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, and so far so good, and it's about to get better.
Thank you very much. I really like that. So we'll get started. First of all, walk us through your professional journey. How did it start? Because I believe that you've been a student of aeronautical engineering, but now you were spearheading a software company. So how was that transition for you, and how is it going so far?
Okay, so first, let me just tell you my current title. So I'm chairman of NetSol Technologies Pakistan Limited, which is listed on PSX, and I'm president of the parent company and founder with two of my brothers and my older brother, who was an investor. So
Mm-hmm.
three of us are currently the co-founders running the company. So, okay, so what was the question again? Sorry.
So primarily, I want to explore how was your professional journey? Like, how did it start initially, and how is it going so far?
You mean how did I pivot from being an aeronautical
Yes, sir.
engineer to being in IT?
Hmm.
So really, at that time when I did my aeronautical engineering, this was in late 70s. Uh, there was not really a lot happening in the IT world. Um, it was very nascent, very esoteric, very complex, and a small kind of niche area. I was fascinated by aeroplanes
Hmm.
from a very young age, and I guess in some ironic twist, I didn't get to fix aeroplanes, but I did get to travel on them, and
Uh-huh.
a hell of a lot. So over the last 35 years,
Hmm.
pre-NetSol, and then during NetSol, travel has been a very big part of building my career and the business. So yeah,
Hmm.
the pivot from aeronautical engineering happened because really I lost my fascination with aeronautics is because the jobs I was being offered, you have to get your hands dirty and black and
Hmm.
full of grease. Because when I
Yeah.
saw some of my ex-colleagues
Yeah.
who had become engineers
Hmm.
and working for PI or Saudi Airlines and whatever, I
Hmm.
saw them in overalls and on their knees
Yeah.
fixing tires, and I said, "This is not as glamorous and as you know fantastic as I imagine." So
Yeah.
I said, "I'm not doing this." Yeah, and
Right.
I was never a handyman. So really, that was the end of my aeronautical career. And
Hmm.
then at that time, IT was just beginning to kind of be visible to the extent that people we used to talk about, well, one day in the future, computers are going to run the world, right?
Yeah.
And this was a chatter, and it's a little bit like people who go live on Mars, right?
Hmm.
If you talk about that today, it was what we used to discuss about computers. That one
Hmm.
day it could run businesses, it could run everything. So, and I actually believed it to the extent that I said, okay, um, this is actually real because whatever I knew about computers in those days, because you could only get it from reading articles and books. There was no internet. I'm
Right.
talking about now, 79, 80.
Hmm.
So I am an avid reader. In fact, a
Hmm.
voracious reader. I just read everything.
Okay.
So I started reading about computers and whatever I could find. And
Hmm.
the subject matter kind of started appealing to me. And I said, okay, I can actually do this. So I enrolled into a very small institute in the US. I was in California at the time,
Hmm.
in Los Angeles. And they were one of the first, one of the pioneering institutes that were just teaching people how to code.
Okay.
So I learned coding on these cards, punch
Hmm.
cards. I don't know, you're too young to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
we didn't have
Yeah.
keyboards and monitors, right?
Hmm.
So we had these punch machines. You put cards in them and actually write your code on a sheet of paper, and then you actually punch those into a card, and the card will go into a card reader, and it will read your line of code. So one line of code will probably have, I don't know, 200 punches or holes in
Yeah.
them. And it was COBOL mainly.
Right.
Yeah, so that's how the journey started. And then, for a year I did this, and then nothing was happening in this industry. I left US and I came to Pakistan in 1984. And at that time, Systems Limited had just been going in, and his name was out there, one of the only software companies in Pakistan, literally. If there were any others, I'd never heard of anybody else. And Systems actually hired me. They are competitors right now, but they hired me as a, if you like, an intern. And I had an aeronautical engineering qualification, no IT, but they hired me based on aptitude. They had an IBM test those days. It was very hard to pass. It was more a logic test. And that's how they established aptitude on whether you're going to be suitable to be a programmer or not. So they gave me a lot of problems to solve in 30 minutes. And I solved enough. They said, okay, you're hired. So
nice.
That was the beginning of my journey.
Great. So on the other hand, honestly, I've been so the reason that I'm going to be phrasing the question this way is that since I'm part of the engineering crew at my firm, and our days are very organized in a way that we have daily meetings, maybe sometimes with customers, but mostly with internal stakeholders. We know that we have certain time slots for our day job and then for forward-looking stuff. So I'm very curious to know, how does the world look like for an executive like you, who's at the forefront of the technology for the company or the employees that work for you? So how does every day look like for you? Like, is it organized? Do you know what to expect, or how? I'm just curious here.
No, a really, really good question. So, earlier in the career, I did exactly everything that you're doing. So you're sitting behind a screen and looking at, for example, you're running a project. Where is your project at? And then what tasks you have to finish. Or if you're cutting code, literally you're actually cutting code.
Yeah.
So now when we started the company, actually, as a founder, and like also my two brothers and colleagues, these roles evolve. Okay. So when you're running a company, what happens is that you have to multitask. So there's not really a typical day when you can sort of predict what is it that you're going to do, other than the fact that you have some meetings are scheduled. And then between those meetings, you will get topics and issues thrown at you out of nowhere. So these are typically, like, if we have close to 1,800 engineers and managers, project managers around the world. We are in 8-9 countries. So there's different time zones and different activities happening in those different time zones. And there's clients everywhere. So we typically will get a problem either coming directly from a client. And for myself, for all the C-level people in the company, typically it's the C-level of the clients that reach out to us. So, for example, if Mercedes-Benz is our client, or BMW or Toyota, typically their CEO, if he gets a problem which is escalated to him or her, they will then reach out to myself or my two colleagues, my brothers. And in fact, now we have the next generation of executives, and they get those problems as well. So we then have to act accordingly to what that problem is. So there's a combination of planned set of activities, where in those meetings you could get anything like, what is the performance for this quarter as a public company in 2 continents, in the USA, North America, as well in Pakistan. We get to see our numbers, how we're performing, the KPIs, the key performance indicators, so the trends and so on, how we're doing on finance, how we're doing on sales and revenues, and so on. So you get those type of more macro numbers, macro picture of the company.
Yeah.
And then you get these kind of problems where you could have an HR issue. Somebody senior wants to leave, or you want to hire somebody senior, or a
Yeah.
client has a problem, or an employee has a problem. They escalate to you directly. Could be a number of things. So, yeah, some
Right.
are planned and some are totally unplanned. Even to this day, right? The unplanned
Yeah.
stuff that comes our way, we obviously never can imagine what can happen from day to day. But thankfully, the company is on a very sound footing. So we don't get too many crazy surprises. We do get an odd
Okay.
showstopper or a spanner in the works, but
Yeah.
it's not really something. I don't want to touch wood. It's not crisis kind of a
Right. Right. Makes
situation.
sense. So NetSol is an ever-growing company, and I wish and hope the best for the company, that it grows stronger day by day. What are some of the core values that you live by and have really helped nurture the company that you've developed?
It's really key to building a company that, first of all, your team is the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
And people say customer is first,
Mm-hmm.
and I say really it can be an equal first, or it can be after employees. Because if you don't have happy employees and colleagues and people who are passionate about what they do, you will never have a happy customer.
True.
So you have to start from within the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, I mean, honestly speaking, the most satisfying part of this journey has been uh, the NetSol team and the X team, even the people who have left and
Yeah.
gone on to do big things.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them have gone on to build big careers, others have gone on to build businesses.
Yeah.
And then the current team that we have, the colleagues that we have, you combine that, those then tell you that the core value has to be that, you have people who are passionate about what they do, they're competent, they're
Mm-hmm.
loyal, they're empowered in the roles. And so that's the first value. So you have to
Okay.
look after your team. You have to help
Right.
them grow. You have to
Mm-hmm.
help them be passionate and
Mm-hmm.
love what they do. And then
Right.
comes, the second most important thing is your clients have to be happy.
Yeah.
And you have to, if you have to over service,
Mm-hmm.
you have to take the customer experience to another level, then you
Mm-hmm.
have to do it. Because I believe customer service has to be extraordinary.
Right. Right.
Because you can be an average company with good customer service, a
Mm-hmm.
poor company with bad customer service, but you will
Mm-hmm.
be an excellent company with
Yeah.
excellent customer service. It's
Right.
very much, related
Yeah.
to what are you doing for your customers. And I think
Yeah.
over time, my brother Salim runs the delivery side of things in Lahore. I mean, he's
Right.
built an amazing team.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, at times we see him over service clients. And sometimes we look at the cost
Yeah.
and then we all agree it's okay. We will
Mm-hmm.
absorb the additional cost so
Okay.
that our clients are happy. But in the
Mm-hmm.
end, then the clients keep coming back. So
Right.
some of our clients that started with us 25 years ago
Mm-hmm.
are still with us. I don't know how many companies can say that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. And I believe that that is a unique value proposition for the clients as well. That if they know that the company that they're partnering up with understands them and understands their needs, I think they're not going to go anywhere either. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah. So other than that, since NetSol is a technology company, how can a tech company stay relevant and competitive in an ever competitive world, in your opinion?
Yeah, this is tough. Yeah. Because technology is ever evolving,
Yeah.
is never stationary.
True.
And you can never really pick a point and say, this is what I'm going to build and I'm going to stay relevant
Mm-hmm.
at this milestone or checkpoint of technology, right?
Right.
But what you have to do is you have to, in a given time, look at what is it that is currently relevant in terms of your tech stack,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and in terms of engineering and in terms of design and
Right.
architecture, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of project management techniques and best practices. You have
Mm-hmm.
to take all of those, then you have to see within those key elements, where do you see tech going?
Okay.
So if you choose, I'll give you an example. So if you choose a tech stack
Mm-hmm.
to build your next platform on,
Mm-hmm.
you have to have a reasonable amount of comfort and knowledge
Mm-hmm.
that this tech stack remains relevant for at least 5 years or
Yeah.
more. And even if better tech comes along,
Mm-hmm.
this is not going to go obsolete. Yeah.
True.
So because you will make a big investment in
Mm-hmm.
cutting code in a certain environment. And if that goes obsolete the next day, or next year, you would have spent millions of dollars building something which has become redundant or obsolete.
Right.
So
Right.
this is
Makes
what
sense.
we have to do well. We have to do this really well.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot get this wrong. That we build something which requires this much money and effort and
Mm-hmm.
time to build something which becomes obsolete 2 years later. And this is an ever
Yeah.
evolving space, and
Mm-hmm.
always a question: are we using the right tools or not?
Right.
And we have to be good at that. You cannot be perfect at it, but you have to be
Mm-hmm.
really good at it. If you're not
Right.
good at this,
Yeah.
you will not be able to build things for the future and sustain your business.
Right. Amazing. So other than that, work culture, I think, is another important thing that keeps employees energized and motivated, and honestly happy to be waking up in the morning to that job. So what are some of the cool traditions at NetSol?
Well, we I think as an employer, we have always empowered our people in terms of how they want to grow as well, like education, training,
Mm-hmm.
giving opportunity to travel. I think there's always some incentive for each engineer, as an example, to grow, because
Right.
as they enhance their skills and as they remain passionate and
Mm-hmm.
motivated, there are opportunities for them to grow. So it's a kind of it feeds on itself
Mm-hmm.
that you can create an environment in which an employee knows if they excel,
Mm-hmm.
they will grow, and they will
Right.
grow their stature, their income, their
Mm-hmm.
career path. Uh, will also
Yeah.
be on the right side. So really, I think we do so many other things, right? Because these are just
Mm-hmm.
some of the softer
Yeah.
points. But on in terms of things we actually have implemented, like we have free education for all our blue collar workers. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, in our office in Lahore, anybody who's a blue collar worker, all the children get free education up to university, and some of their kids, you have T
Mm-hmm.
boys and you have people who are doing security jobs and so on.
Yeah.
Their children have become computer science graduates,
Yeah.
and they come back and work for NetSol. So that
Right.
motivates other people to do well as well. There
Yeah.
are other incentives. We have a very strong, emphasis on health.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we have a gym, a full-blown gym. We have cricket teams. We have snooker teams. We have
Nice.
both intercompany competitions. We have
Right.
outside of the company. We compete
Yeah.
with other companies. So sports is a
Yeah.
very big part. Health and fitness is a very big part. Excursions, off-site trips, and
Mm-hmm.
meetings, and so on. Opportunity to travel. Yeah, so there's plenty of
Interesting. Interesting.
things that people can do to remain, passionate about coming
Right.
to work the next day.
Yeah, right. That's amazing. So other than that, what are some of the cool products or innovations that you've worked on that you're really proud of to date?
Okay, so I mean, there are a number of things we have done as a team. A lot of innovation has come out of Lahore, which is our engine
Mm-hmm.
for innovation. But we started a number of new programs for innovation. We have set up something called Unity.
Mm-hmm.
This is a unique team, and we called it Unity because it's bringing many different products
Mm-hmm.
under one environment and framework.
Mm-hmm.
And within that, we are creating new products, more innovative products. And for example, you mentioned autos. Within autos, we have created a mobility platform. We believe is a very strong trend
Mm-hmm.
uh, around car ownership as a
Yeah.
younger generation. For example, my children don't want to own cars.
Yeah.
They're all in the age of being able to drive a car, but they don't even have a driver's license. They rather go on public transport or Uber or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because it's a big responsibility for them. They don't want to be tied down to a car. And
Right.
so what we are finding is that it's gradually evolving into a very important product, and mobility has become a new product type where
Mm-hmm.
people want to be able to use cars, but not own
Mm-hmm.
them, and use them by time, by the hour, by the day, by the week. Um, People like to share cars,
Yeah.
ride sharing, car sharing. There's subscription as well. Rather than owning a car, you subscribe to Netflix or Prime. You can
Yeah.
subscribe to a car.
Yeah.
You have the car when you need it, and you don't have to have
Yeah.
it when you don't need it. So
Right.
within mobility, we have done a lot of innovation. I don't think any company in Pakistan, even a lot of the companies in the US and UK, cannot get close to where we are at the moment. But it's
Yeah.
evolving. It has not happened today that
Mm-hmm.
it has taken over
Mm-hmm.
the traditional car ownership, but we believe it's a very strong trend that is developing. In the next 3 to 5 years, this will become a major way of
Mm-hmm.
using cars is through mobility and temporary ownership.
Right. And honestly, kudos to you guys. It makes me proud as a Pakistani as well to hear that this kind of innovation is coming right from Lahore, the city where I was born and raised, and spent more than 20 years of my life over there. So that is very inspiring, nonetheless. Other than that, I want to ask you about your evolution as a person and as a leader. So right now, talking about the position that you're in right now, what myths do you think have been busted for you over time?
Um, well, over time now, 25 years later, I think this is my 25th year anniversary in the company. And it's also
Oh,
25 years since the company's started.
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So my role has evolved to a point now. Today, we are doing our succession planning. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
what we are doing is that we are empowering the next layer of management
Mm-hmm.
into taking more ownership of what the company needs. Yeah, from operations to management to finance to sales and so on. So
Mm-hmm.
the last year, for me at least, and my brother Salim, both of us have been gradually bringing the younger generation up, and because that itself is a quite an important role. Because what we don't want to do is that
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden we retire and the
Mm-hmm.
young generation is not ready yet. So
Okay.
what we had to do was go through a transition
Mm-hmm.
of succession. So as much as I was passionate about my job over the years on
Mm-hmm.
a day to day, I am as passionate about making sure the succession
Mm-hmm.
planning is as effective as what we have been doing in our main jobs over the years.
Mm-hmm.
So my main activity at the moment is
Yeah.
creating more headroom for the next layer of management to start
Right.
taking more roles and responsibility. And
Mm-hmm.
personally, what I want to do is in the next 2 to 3 years
Mm-hmm.
is to essentially be a more an advisor, strategist,
Mm-hmm.
planner, and guide people,
Mm-hmm.
and play more golf
Okay.
and travel more. And travel this time for
Nice.
pleasure with the family, and
Yeah.
give more time to the family, which
Yeah.
was very difficult to do as we were building the business.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, priorities change over time.
Yeah.
So this part of our lives, we want to be able to empower younger generation. We want to
Mm-hmm.
give back
Right.
to the community as well as to the company
Mm-hmm.
and family of what
Yeah.
we have been rewarded with.
Pivoting the conversation a little bit, I wanted to ask you about your opinion on how can we bridge the gap between academia and industry.
Okay, good question. I think, look, education in IT has also evolved like anything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so going back many, many years when I studied got my first course in IT, it was very much hands-on. Yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
was very direct. And as the industry evolved and grew, it became more theory than practical. So the computer
Mm-hmm.
science degree, some of the people I speak to, yes, you do get assignments and projects to build programs and so on,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a lot of emphasis on research and theory and um, computer design and so on.
Mm-hmm.
I think what should happen now is that a university degree essentially is there to give you discipline and structure. I
Mm-hmm.
think it doesn't matter what subject you learn, whether it's business or economics. The main thing you learn in university is how to deliver assignments on time, how to be punctual. You hit your milestones, which is very similar to what a career is like. So
Mm-hmm.
discipline and structure is a key takeaways. But what we need to do for IT is that within that you have to have very much core subject matter
Mm-hmm.
that addresses the current evolution in technology. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
teach young people to see ahead as well as
Right.
as well
Yeah.
as what you can do today. Because by
Mm-hmm.
the time you graduate, the technology may have had a quantum leap.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you
Yes.
finish your
Yeah.
3 or 4 year degree, and
Mm-hmm.
you learn something in the first year, which has become totally obsolete.
Yeah.
So what should happen in the curriculum is that a constant, if you like, update of the training material according to what is happening in the industry. And
Mm-hmm.
that's very difficult to do because, typically universities set a curriculum and they tell a teacher to go and teach it, right?
Yeah.
And then in the meantime, Apple has come with 20 other innovations and
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft has done something crazy.
Yeah.
And then they're reading about it, but they don't read about it in the university,
True.
you know.
True.
So I can imagine when Microsoft took a huge pivot to cloud,
Mm-hmm.
but if they were doing case studies in a university in Stanford, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know how much up to date was the course material to what Microsoft were doing today or
Right.
on that day.
Yeah.
So it has to be more dynamic, the content.
Uh-huh.
It's too much to expect in Pakistan,
Mm-hmm.
but you know what? Uh, it's not difficult because there's so much information, there's
Mm-hmm.
so much data, and there's so much access to information. It doesn't matter you're sitting in Gujranwala or Lahore or
Yes.
Sargodha. You have access to the information and data as you would have in
Mm-hmm.
Stanford or the Silicon Valley. So,
Yeah.
information age, the internet age is a great equalizer.
Yeah.
Everybody's on the
True.
same ground
Yeah.
and ground
And
zero.
especially with programming, I guess now honestly there is really no need to pay anyone to learn it. That
Exactly. It's all there.
everything's free.
It's open. And so
Yeah.
what I think the most important
Yeah.
thing is, can a university be so open-minded and forward-thinking that they can
Mm-hmm.
say, well, you know what, our curriculum is
Mm-hmm.
what is the currently happening in the industry, and we will
Right.
update it. We'll update it
Yeah.
every month if we have to do it. Because
Yeah.
by the time my students finish a 4 year degree,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to be learning something that is already history and
Yeah.
happened and
Yeah.
done and over with. And everybody has
Yeah.
access to the same information.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's going to get left behind. That's the beauty of
Yeah.
where we are at the moment in terms of knowledge acquisition.
Right. Excellent. So other than that, if I were to talk to you as a chairman of your company, considering the responsibilities that come with it, so how do you stay up to date with the changing interest in the changing trends in the industry?
Well, you have to be a student of your business and your core competency and what you do. If I'm running an IT company,
Mm-hmm.
I have to be a student of technology. I
Right.
have to be a step ahead. So I have to read, I have to research,
Yeah.
I have to learn.
So
Uh,
do you like time block in your calendar for learning every week or like
okay, yeah,
how does
good question. So I'm actually not. It's not every week. It's every day.
okay, okay.
It's every day.
Yeah.
And what I do is that literally there are several, if you like, sources of information that I
Mm-hmm.
have direct access to, and there's certain information which is available in the general media,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and for example, you will read some of the IT publications. You know, you can follow
Right.
those, and even some of the business publications now. You can pick up the Wall Street Journal, and you can pick up Harvard Business Review, and you can pick up something from MIT, and they have put out so much information. Like if you want to read about the cloud, so
Yeah.
today it's not the cloud anymore. There's like 20 different, if you like, flavors of it. Maybe
Correct.
100 different flavors of it. If you look
Yeah.
at what can you do in cloud managed services, it used to be like, okay, it's info sec, okay, or it's installing your applications on the cloud, and you're accessing it, and you have you buy some space off the cloud. So 3 or 4 things off the menu. Now, if
Yeah.
you open up a menu, there's like 300 things that you can do, right?
Yeah.
As you would know, that how much
Yeah.
is expanded, and our job is to know
Yeah.
exactly how it's evolving. So we want to be able to sometimes follow those trends, and sometimes we have to lead those trends. So if a nascent technology is starting to, if you like, seed itself, you have to save, you have to come up with a strategy on whether this is a trend that's going to take off or not. And you try and be a little bit ahead of its time. Like blockchain, right? I mean,
Yeah.
3 years ago, people thought it was a crazy idea.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about blockchain, people will shoot you.
Yeah.
But now,
It has
blockchain
totally
has become a
changed.
very much
Yeah.
an important part. Forget crypto, forget all of that. But I'm
Yeah.
talking about, the actual underlying technology, right? That is
Right.
not going anywhere. That won't
Right.
go anywhere. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
True.
we should try to, at least as leaders, business leaders,
Yeah.
we should try to see opportunities before they happen. That's the job of a
Right.
leader, right? In fact,
Right.
you haven't asked me that question, but what a leadership does is
Yeah.
sees a trend before it happens and sees a crisis before it happens.
Okay. Yeah. That's a nice way of putting it together. Yeah.
And then you can take action before either
Interesting.
happens.
Yeah. So taking this idea a little bit forward. So let's say a young professional such as myself, whose experiences of a kid as compared to yours, but let's say if we were to target being in the C-suite eventually in the later stage of our career, what should we be doing right now to actually make it happen 10, 15 years down the road? What should we be doing more of, and what should we stop doing?
Wow. Okay. So if I was in your shoes today, it also depends. Look, Osama, it depends on the individual also, right? So it's different things for different people. I know some people who want to be a really good programmer, and that's all what they want to do. So they're cutting code today, and they say they'll be happy cutting code in 20 years. And we have colleagues like that in our company who don't have any other aspiration but to keep up with the trend of how they want to grow as an engineer.
Okay.
The other people who want to come out of engineering, become project managers, program managers, and other people who want to go into sales, marketing. So first of all, you have to figure out yourself. What is your aptitude? What is your ambition?
Okay.
What do you aspire to be? So today, if you're an engineer, you want to remain an engineer, and 15 years down the road, you want to be better than what you are doing today, I'd say research. I'd say make it a hobby. Do stuff at home, which you cannot do at work. Do some pet projects, right?
Right.
Do something unusual. Do something fascinating, which you cannot do at work. Just to excel, so that you can cut code like nobody else can. You can create different types of applications and products, which potentially can have a good business use case, right?
Right.
So because ultimately, as an engineer, most of these guys like Mark Zuckerberg and Musk, and so they're hardcore engineers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had a business idea, but their engineering was first. Mark Zuckerberg was a coder, as was Bill Gates, right? They cut codes, and they were cutting code in dorms, and they dropped out, right? So the coders can do whatever. At that time, they didn't know they probably become businessmen, but the hardcore ability was coding, and they struck an idea which was amazing.
Yeah.
And as with Google, Sergey Brin,
Right. Yeah. PhDs.
and Larry Page,
Yeah.
they built this algorithm. They wrote it. as when they were in Stanford, right? As you know, the
Mm-hmm.
history. They wrote
Yeah.
it in this algorithm for the first search engine algorithm. They
Mm-hmm.
wrote it and they copyrighted it,
Mm-hmm.
and they started doing search of all the data documents which was on the web. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is not very old news. This is 15 years ago only, maybe even less.
Yeah.
But they were engineers. So,
True.
yes, you can become very successful being an engineer as well. But
Mm-hmm.
if you want to become a project manager, then you have to also study. You have to learn. You have to, if you like, become more disciplined. Project manager is a different skill as opposed to cutting code. You have to
Yeah.
be good with people because you become a team player. You learn how to
Correct.
manage people. So you have to have
Mm-hmm.
some management acumen and aptitude, right?
Right.
Uh,
Right.
and similarly, so you have to
Mm-hmm.
uh, come out of your comfort zone, first
Mm-hmm.
of all, because nothing happens in the comfort zone.
Correct.
Nothing happens
Absolutely.
until you
Absolutely.
step out of it.
Yeah.
Your life will be just status quo. It will just remain repetitive.
Right. Right.
Only when you
So
come out of
yeah.
it that you
Mm-hmm.
will. Okay,
Yeah.
go on.
No, no, that's true. I was just thinking about a success at this point of time, since it's a moving target and it changes from from one phase of life to another. So, what does success look like to you, considering in the position that you are in right now?
Yeah, and then you rightly said success means different things to different people in different times and
Mm-hmm.
phases of life. Yeah. So when I first started, or a typical person like me who
Mm-hmm.
started, first success week, can I pay my rent? You
Yeah.
know, you can buy a car.
Yeah.
Instead of driving a 200-pound car, can you buy a 1,000-pound car?
Yeah.
You see what you have to have in
Yeah.
life are two kinds of targets, right? So they have to be some shorter targets, and then they
Mm-hmm.
have to be long-term goals. Okay?
Yeah.
And shorter targets help you reach the goal because in the end, when you run a marathon,
Mm-hmm.
you have to take the first step in the first mile, right? You're
Yeah.
not going to do a 25-mile marathon without taking that first step. So you set
Yeah.
yourself shorter goals. So I
Mm-hmm.
actually always believed, always. I mean, it's not something uh, cliched.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say that, oh,
Yeah.
always me, always going to be successful. But I actually am telling you, I
Yeah.
always believed so much in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I was some super clever guy. I
Mm-hmm.
just felt that, using whatever God has gifted me with
Mm-hmm.
and some common sense and hard work and discipline, I will get somewhere in life. And each of the difficult phases that I went through were just stepping stones. So if you define success, it meant different things to me at different times, but always wanted to get to this point where I am.
Right. Right.
Even when I was waiting for a bus at a bus stop,
Mm-hmm.
waiting for the next bus, so at that time was just to get from A to B, but
Yeah.
I knew that at some
Mm-hmm.
point I will have a car, I will have a home, and I have a nicer car and a nicer home.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, I'll get where I am today. In between, there was a lot of uncertainty,
Yeah.
a lot of surprises, a lot of
Yeah.
shocks, a lot
Yeah.
of failures,
Mm-hmm.
lots of failures, a lot of setbacks, crises. Okay,
Right.
but you just cannot. You just
Yeah.
have to hardwire your brain.
Mm-hmm.
That's the term I always use. Hardwire it to say to yourself that
Mm-hmm.
you will succeed in the end, and the setbacks that come in the way are in fact help you navigate the course
Yeah.
because you then go around those hurdles and you
Right.
ultimately still get to
Right.
your end game.
Yeah, that is an amazing perspective, and it reminds me of something that my wife commonly tells me, that it's mind over matter, right? If you put your mind to something, then everything else kind of follows. So now that we are heading towards the end of our conversation, my final question to you would be, knowing what you know now, what do you think you would have done differently in your career?
I think very little differently
Mm-hmm.
because you have to really think that if you had done things differently, you may not be where you are. A lot of people say
Yeah.
that you achieve success, for example, but if I had
Mm-hmm.
done things differently, I would be more successful.
Mm-hmm.
But you really don't know that. Because if you had done things differently, maybe you would not even be as successful. You may have missed something else. So I think what I
Yeah.
believe in is that where you get to in life, ultimately, you know, is a combination of, different time decisions that you took. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I am not talking about if, God forbid, anybody fails. Yes, you can certainly say you could have done things differently and not
Right.
fail. But if God has given you success and you actually reached a point, and success, by the way, is measured in different ways. Yeah. You
Mm-hmm.
asked me a question. Success means different things. I can tell you,
Yeah.
success is very different to different people because you can succeed in family life. You can succeed in keeping good health. You can succeed
Mm-hmm.
in making more money. You can succeed in making career goals, reaching a position of importance.
Yeah.
You know, you can be a billionaire or you can be a prime minister. You can
Right.
be a doctor or you could be a nurse. Everybody sets different criteria for success, right?
Yeah.
So, in
Yeah.
my view, where I
Mm-hmm.
am today,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have done anything differently. From the time I worked at McDonald's
Yeah.
to sweeping floors
Yeah.
or whatever I did along the way to get here, huge mistakes. But I think those mistakes were important to make because if I hadn't made those mistakes and had failure, I don't think I would have learned enough to have made a success out of what we have done now.
Right. That is amazing, and it's very profound that you say that all of these tiny things that we look at. So the thing is, like, these tiny things, when they stack up, and after so many years that we were to look back at it, and they're all part of our journey and struggle, honestly.
Yeah.
And the fact that you mentioned McDonald's, it kind of reminded me of my time over there. That honestly, I wanted to be the best guy at McDonald's at that time when I used to work there. That
Yeah.
was my ultimate goal, and
Yeah.
rightly so. We made a record of serving about 120 cars in 1 hour,
Well,
and those were these tiny things, that irrespective of the job that I was in, I just wanted to be really good at what I was doing.
you
And
want to excel everything.
yeah, yeah. and it's
That's the way.
and it kind of struck a chord when you said that. It kind of started, the flashback started coming in. But anyways, sir, thank you so much once again for being here with us. I honestly had an amazing time, and I would say today is actually success for me as far as this podcast is concerned. Me and my wife, we started this together a couple of months ago, but today I can say that there has been some traction. People of certain importance and caliber are coming in, sharing their experience, and they're kind of helping us redefine ourselves. So with that, I thank you. And as far as our audience are concerned, I would say, if you like the content, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and share it with your friends and family. If you have any guest suggestions, feel free to let us know in the comments, or send us an email. This podcast is going to be hosted on all major platforms. And until the next episode rolls out, take care of yourself and see you soon. Bye.